I want to go across now to Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, one of India's top lawyers who's with us on this broadcast. Dr. Singhvi, we're seeing this very aggressive back and forth between the government on the one side, the judiciary trying to push back on the other, on the issue of the collegium system, the government clearly unhappy with the manner in which the collegium is functioning, and now very publicly wanting to change that. As a leading jurist, one of the country's top lawyers and an active member of politics, what are you making of the kind of pressure the government is making to bear on the judiciary, wanting to change the manner in which the collegium system functions?
Rahul, you partly answered your question. This is completely unacceptable, I'm sorry to say. You can always say that I am also associated with the Congress, but I am really speaking in my capacity as part of an ecosystem of law and justice for decades. Number one, you have had a judgment, good, bad or indifferent. You may like it or not like it. I was the first speaker on the NJAC bill. There was 100% approbation in the Lok Sabha, 99% plus in the Rajya Sabha, but that was overturned by the judiciary. Now, once you reach that stage, you cannot have backdoor entry methods. You cannot, I can't blackmail you, I can't delay you, I can't obstruct you and say, look, unless you agree to something which was invalidated by a large bench, I will keep on pestering you, I will delay other activities, I will keep on hurting you, etc., etc. That's one. Two, this is going on in a very ham-handed, I would say crude manner. Certainly constitutional functionaries, and not one but more than one, are not entitled to launch broadsides against the judiciary every day. I saw part of your conclave, not on that day contemporaneously, but later on the links. I think the Chief Justice was extremely, he used words of studied moderation. But suppose he had used the same kind of words as the other speaker in your conclave had, the Honorable Law Minister. Would it have shown each institution in a good light? So I think this is just not done. And thirdly, good, bad or indifferent, there was a perception that independence of judiciary is a more cherished and a wider value, and it can be protected by a collegium system. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's right. Well, then jolly well, if you have the courage of your convictions, bring a new bill. Bring it to the political class. Pass it through. I would say bring a constitutional amendment with 2/3 and then act on it. What's the point every day I threaten you? I am virtually, and I'm very, very, very sorry to say, virtually attacking ex-Supreme Court judges as some kind of a peripheral extremist element in this country? Some kind of feeling that there is a Cholawala attitude which is anti-national? This is ridiculous. You're talking of former judges. You may disagree, but this kind of vocabulary, this kind of approach is completely unacceptable. I think it does great harm to the persons who say it. I think the judiciary is exemplary restraint, especially the Chief Justice, but I think it ultimately harms the institution.
Let me press you on the issue of principle. Why should judges choose judges? If you see international jurisprudence, there are many countries where it's not only judges who are picking judges. In some countries it's an out-and-out political decision. In some countries it's a mix. Why do you think that the system of collegium in the way that it is the best way for judges to be chosen, which is what the Chief Justice thinks, and what changes and improvements do you suggest?
2 or 3 answers. You forget that the political class was 99+% aligned to the fact that this must change. It is ironical that this government's repeated onslaughts and attacks and ham-handed manner of doing those attacks has actually united the entire non-NDA political spectrum against that rare unanimity earlier in favor of the NJAC. Point 1. Is that not ironical? 2. I agree with you that it requires some relook, and the NJAC was nothing but a broader-based collegium, namely judges plus non-judges in a broader-based basis appoint judges. However, if, as they say, the Supreme Court is right because it is final, it is not final because it is right. If the Supreme Court has rightly or wrongly given a decision, what is the course open to you? It's obvious answer, isn't it? You can try and remove the basis of that judgment. You can try and have a constitutional amendment. You can try and generate political consensus.
Why do you think that's not being done? given the fact that the government has a brute majority and can cobble together some support from allies to achieve a two-thirds majority, and given the kind of public comments the law minister has made and clearly reflecting the position within the government, why do you think they're not doing that?
Exactly. Again, part of the answer is hidden in your question. It is not being done because A, this government is ham-handed and crude in many of these things. B, it is displaying a control freak approach. C, it is not bothered about consensus, talks, reaching out, getting a broad general agreement, convergence. It is interested in a brute show of strength, sniping, daily sniping. Today I can count at least 10 or 20 sniping events since this was first raised. This is the approach of this government. And that is not the way you can deal with even the executive or the legislature, much less the judiciary. That's why I said the irony you have here. You had a 100%, near 100% consensus, which you have converted into a complete opposition. That's been your achievement by your ham-handed crude methods.
You said you'd watched that session with the Chief Justice of India. What did you think of it? As a top lawyer looking at it from the outside, what were your impressions, Dr. Singhvi?
Well, first and foremost, I thought that you are now entitled to start studying for and get a law degree. You're getting good in dealing with hardcore law. But secondly, I think the Chief Justice in that came out rather well, because he handled those questions, and they were by no means always easy questions. They were by no means always soft questions. He handled them with aplomb and grace. Secondly, I think there was a coherence, a continuity and a flow to the conversation, which was very, very impressive. Thirdly, I think there was sincerity. He tried to be as honest and upfront as possible. And fourthly, I think there was also moderation while being sincere and upfront. For example, your law minister question could have had a very different, but what's the point? You know, two people fighting and everybody else will be laughing. So I think on the whole, the Chief Justice came out far, far more dignified, balanced, and in a sense, a sober equilibrium level person and institution than some of those who really attacked this in a more ham-handed manner, that too on your show and earlier.
Okay, so you've come out strong, asking for the government to either bring in a constitutional amendment and stop the sniping because it cannot continue in this fashion, or let the current system continue because that's what the Supreme Court in its wisdom has decided.
And stop making these comments about ex-judges. Stop thinking that everybody who disagrees with you is an anti-national. Stop overawing and kind of pressurizing. I would use the word blackmail, but also stop obstructing. What is happening now, Rahul, is you do this, otherwise I will do that. That's not the way it can function. See the number of cases where second recommendations and reiterations by the judiciary are still pending. There can't be one under the existing law, but there are many.
Okay, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Dr. Singhvi.
Thank you.